invite you to come into the silence for a little bit and just listen.
May the light of 1,000 suns shine through. Live the life of grace that you were meant to.
Breathe with me.
May the light of 1,000 suns shine through.
Thank you for being here
Live the
now.
life of grace that you were meant to. Waheguru,
Waheguru.
Waheguru.
Breathing in this now with you, letting this music gather us. This is the Guru Ganesha Band, 1,000 Suns. One of my favorites. May the light of 1,000 suns shine through right where you are. Welcome to Ascension Inspiration, episode 8. 8 weeks consistently. I promised myself I would do this. I would show up at 1 o'clock every Thursday and open this book called Dossier on the Ascension by Serapis Bey, transmitted by Mark Prophet of the Summit Lighthouse University. Just taking deep breaths and just presencing the presence of God, of love, of beauty, of wisdom, of power, of peace, of abundance, of health. A radiant presence that dwells right where I am, right where you are. In the backdrop today, I'm going to have Jonathan Goldman's track called The Divine Name, I Am. I just want to start with the bell. The blue jeweled bell, calling in the Blu-ray beings to be with us, to speak through me, honoring all 7 directions. You are the blue diamond in the lotus heart of Divine Mother. Isn't that great, Donna? Amadea from Avalon. Thank you. Thank you. If you want to just say hello during this transmission, this will go about anywhere from 44 minutes to an hour or so. In just a minute, I'm going to read through a book that I've been guided to read out loud and let that inspiration, inspirito, the spirit within, guide my heart and my conversation today. My intention here now is always to inspire, to activate, to elevate something within your heart, your mind, that remembers, it's recognizing who and what you truly are. That you are a divine being having this human experience, as we lovingly have heard, and so much more. We're still waking up. We're still like little children, learning how to speak and spell and add and, remember who and what we are. We have a case of amnesia of some sort. And I am still remembering, coming online, speaking from that presence. Sorry about that. I just had an interruption call. I put do not disturb. But before I begin, I'd like to read a prayer. But actually, let's go back to this. I say this every week, and I think it's important. What is ascension? For those of you that are just watching this for the first time, I don't know when you're going to jump on this train, this ascension train. And so I don't want to assume that everybody here knows what ascension is. So just by definition, simple, from askangels.com, ascension by definition is the path of those who are choosing to consciously step into a higher level of light. It's a personal choice to boldly step into the unknown in order to expand into an experience that is entirely new. Ascension is actively choosing to evolve into a higher consciousness. Ascension is merging with your higher self, opening your heart. And let's say, when we say, I had a conversation, I heard somebody say, when we have our lower self and higher self, we're still in duality, right? There's graduations of the self. We have our little self, the little self that believes it's a body that comes from this family that's only here, that's just this. That's your little self, your limited 5 sensory experience, right? We're a multi-sensory being that's got multi-dimensional aspects, and we're still waking up to understand what that really means and how we can utilize all aspects of our multi-dimensional selves coming into one. But there is a graduated self, there is a higher self, and all different religions of different cultures have called it various things. Your Atmic body, your Buddhic body, your causal body, your monadic body. These are various graduated aspects. They're graduated aspects of who and what you are. So ascension is waking up, rising into this experience of your true God self here on earth as it is in heaven, right? We get to ascend in body. We have an option, we have an opportunity, we have an invitation, we have a calling, all right? And so just consider me your ascension guide. I use this book. I said it yesterday to a sister. A sister said to me, I just love to hear more of your divine inspiration, your own words instead of reading others' words. And whether you subscribe to reading other books or various things, I love it. I do. And as I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, Thomas Troward said, what we need on this planet more than anything is people who've come alive. And do whatever that is that makes you come alive, whether that's dancing, whether it's cooking, gardening, going to temple, praying 5 times a day, knitting, whatever that is that brings you joy. Go do that, because what we need on the planet is more people who are living in their joy and their love and joy. It's 2 powerful emotions and vibrations. And so this brings me joy in reading this out loud. I would read this out loud to myself, and when I first got it, Serapis Bey is an ascended master who dwells in a etheric retreat over Egypt, over Luxor. And the Great White Brotherhood is there with him, and he's the keeper of what is called the Ascension Flame. In your spiritual journey, you're going to come across what is called the flame, the fire, the cosmic fire, the holy Christed fire, the violet fire, the holy white pure fire. Fire is a part of your spiritual journey. It's what Moses saw when he saw that burning bush, and when it said, "Who am I say? What is this burning bush?" This burning bush is fire. It is God. It is the I Am. And so when we come into that cosmic fire, something happens inside our spiritual bodies, our etheric, our mental, emotional, physical bodies. We become purified. We become on this path of initiation. So a lot of us are in different evolutions of that, and that's okay. There's no one greater than the other. I'm not here saying I've got this licked. I've come to you in my humility as one who's walking a path of initiation, a path of purification. But I will tell you as one who consciously every day calls upon the holy fire in my life. And it's one of the most important integral pieces of the journey that I've been on. And a lot of our family members are living a life of calling this flame. There is an active flame. There's a vital flame inside you. It's called the threefold flame. All right? So this is kind of what all this conversation is about. So before I begin, I'd like to offer a prayer. This came from this book. Serapis put it in as a prayer for purity. What we need on this planet is purity, not Puritan as far as a religious concept, but purity, pure love, pulo. And this is called a prayer for purity. And so I speak this before I begin reading this sacred text. In the name of the beloved, mighty, victorious presence of God, I am in me, my very own beloved, holy Christ itself. I call to the heart of the Savior, Jesus Christ, my brother, and the servant sons of God and the servant daughters of God who are with him in heaven, beloved Serapis Bey and the brotherhood at Luxor, beloved Archangel Gabriel, beloved Justinius, and the great seraphim, beloved Lanello, the entire spirit of the great white brotherhood and the world mother. Beloved Serapis, in God's name I am, calling for purity's ray to expand, imploring that shadows no longer adhere, so longing for purity now to appear, my mind purify of its fleeting impression, my feelings release of all impure direction. Let memory retain the immaculate concept and treasure the pearl, Om Mani Padme Hum, of the Holy Christ precept. O souvenir of radiant wonder, let my mind on thee now ponder. Christ's discrimination sunder all that's less than God's success. Cut me free from all deception, fix my mind on pure perception. Hear, O thou, my invocation, my Christ self to manifest, manifest, manifest. O flame of cosmic purity, from Luxor blaze through me, completely clear all shadowed weights. Ascend me now to thee. And in full faith I consciously accept this, manifest, manifest, manifest. Right here and now with full power, eternally sustained, all powerfully active, ever expanding, and world enfolding until all of us are wholly ascended in the light and truly free, truly free. Beloved I am, beloved I am, beloved I am. We are. Welcome if you're just getting here to Ascension Inspiration, episode number 8, chapter 7. We've just called it Powerful Invocation. Invocations are prayers that are sometimes written. You can just recite them. You know, there's nothing weird about this. If you're feeling like, whoa, what's he saying? It's not the Lord's Prayer that I say every Sunday. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. These are just prayers that we read, recite. We're coming into the seventh age, right? Which is known as ceremonial magic, ritual and ceremonial magic. And magic, what is magic? Magic is just the energy of love. Magic is nothing to be afraid of. Magic is natural. As I often say, I'm a natural magician using the metaphysical laws of the universe in harmony. And when you understand, I was talking to my little boy about this, that when you understand their laws, he had a little buddy of his that said, he goes, Daddy, my buddy said he doesn't believe in karma. I said, so? Doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. And I said, I understand. Karma, it's like God or Jesus. You know, people have got a bad rap or a bad feeling when you say God, when you say Jesus Christ. And not in that defaming, derogatory way, but when you say Jesus Christ, you know, what comes up for you? A lot of it is because of our programming or what we've seen or witnessed, and we have an aversion to religiosity. But there's a difference between religion and spirituality. And we're letting go of the old religion, the old religious ways, and we're coming into a new religion. Religion is not bad. Religion done in a way to bring ceremony and bring ritual to the divine is powerful and potent. To bring community together, it's potent. What's required? But backing up to Jet, he said, karma, he doesn't believe in karma. I said, well, bud, here's the thing. Let's just call it something else. It's called cause and effect. There is a law of cause and effect. That's inescapable. You can't, doesn't matter whether you believe it or not, it just is. What is. And when you understand what is, when you understand the laws of the universe, when you understand the laws of the cosmos, the laws of nature, the laws, the many, many different laws that are immutable, unchangeable, and you get into harmony and you get into alignment, you get into obedience to it, it's amazing what happens in your life. So, Chapter 7. We're going to go into it. All right. Chapter 7, as this is titled, is called The Divine Right of Every Man. All right. Stay along as you can. Come back and visit this. Once again, I put these on YouTube. You can go later and save these and watch these. Listen to these in your car, wherever you feel guided. Again, this is just an inspirational conversation, an inspirational reading to stimulate something to help you access that God self inside you and access the pathway to your ascension. Serapis says in the beginning of this, unto you who in your striving would know no gain but the fruit of God realization, God has ordained the aegis and the guidance of the great master teachers. And we're going to hear from this great master teacher, Serapis Bey. The concern of man for his immortal inheritance may not exceed the infinite concern of God, nor equal it. But it is just and wholly possible that the concern of man within the relative sphere of his devotion can approximate the concern that every ascended master had prior to his ascension. And if I feel like it's a little wordy, I may stop. And if you have any questions throughout this, go ahead and type it in. If I can answer it, I'll do my best. I don't know everything. I do just know just enough, as I always say. And this is not true. My beloved always says, no, that's not true. But I lovingly joke, as Forrest Gump would say, I may not be a smart man, but I sure know what love is. Now, I have some loose understandings and some things, but if you have a question on anything I read, please don't hesitate. One of the principal problems involving the monadic consciousness is the insistence by individuals, when they allow themselves to come under the influences of the carnal mind, that they use their own God-given free will to protect their individuality at all costs. Individualism is positively not correctly interpreted by the masses of mankind, nor even by many among the spiritual seekers for greater truth. These confuse what may term human rights with what we choose to call the divine right of every man, woman, and child on planet Earth. This is an important concept because we come around our spiritual journey and this term sovereignty comes in, right? And we will not give our sovereignty, our power away. And we've been in this world. I've been in organizations, Christian organizations that were not in total alignment. There are gurus, there are abusers of power in power. That's the truth. And we want to be cautious and discerning on where we give our power and not just come under some dictatorship, some tyrannical control, some manipulation by some spiritual guru. You've always got to pay attention and tune in. But I've walked this journey because I've been working through my own purification of power and understanding true divine power and divine submission, surrender to the divine will. God's will be done, not mine. And there is a certain enfolding we must do to a greater truth, right? You know, there's too many of us that are lone wolves out there doing our work and our mission, but we're not coming into harmony and co-creation with a larger organism. You know, and some of the things that we're talking about in our home right now is when the little rivers come into the body of water, the ocean. When the rivers hit the ocean, there's just a surrender. When the fresh water comes into the salty ocean, there's no resistance. It just is. It's a flow and it's a greater good. And so in our rights, make sure you are not in resistance and rebellion to the divine right. That's how our suffering happens. It is true, and the world is proof of it, that human rights are being employed by mankind, and the mess of human pottage ladled out as enticement to the Esau consciousness continues to defraud the firstborn sons of their eternal inheritance. And this is where it comes. This is where, this is a springboard. This Father's Day, you guys, I really felt something, and I want to presence it. I've been a child of God that's been walking this journey and wrestling with my relationship with Divine Father, because I've had a wrestle with the relationship with my physical fathers, and I don't know about you, if this resonates right where I am, you are, and so I know that if I share from the intimate spaces, into me see, places and spaces you might resonate. But on this planet, we've had an abuse of power by the patriarchy, by the sons and the daughters of the father-mother. Not just the sons, because we've all participated. There are no victims. We've all co-created this great drama, this great comedy, this great play of life. And the Divine Father is kind of invisible in our hearts, I think. You know, we were imposed a heavenly Father. We were imposed a dynamic Father God that will punish you and send you to hell if you don't behave. And hopefully you got to the pearly gates and you'd look at the list and go, you are pass or you are fail. Down to the burning hell you would go. This Father, you know, we rebel against that. Of course we do. That's not a loving God. That's not a loving Father. That is just not truth. The Divine Father, I felt the heart of where a lot of us in the collective community, we honor the mother, and yes, we must return to the mother. We must return to the mother's love. Back, our rebirth is imperative that we come through Holy Mother's womb and be rebirthed. But in our home, in our conversation, we definitely keep the Divine Father present. You know, a lot of us in the spiritual communities and journeys, these light workers, light weavers, we have a hard time really grounding our containers and grounding our forms and becoming abundant and really doing the things we're here to do. You need both. You need the loving Divine Mother, and you need the powerful lightning of Father. It's imperative, and it's because the sons of the Father, let's say, it's not the Father's fault. In the free will experiment, the children of the Father, Mother, God has created erroneously at times. And so we're coming back to a true, pure, divine blueprint of our creation. But make sure we're honoring both Mother and Father. That's what's called the Eros Gamos. That's what's called the Unia Mystica. That is the holy marriage of the sun and the moon, the dragon and the phoenix, right? This holy union inside your very own being. And I know that when you have that in wholeness and completeness, it is inevitable that you manifest it without. As within, so without. As above, so below. And so we have to mirror it, but a lot of us are looking on the outside for this relationship to complete us. And you are a complete sovereign being in your wholeness, your holy, whole self. The divine right is the immortal plan for universal man, the monadic intent, i.e. man's God-designed individuality and his natural gravitation toward oneness with his true self is the first principle, or foundation stone in which the inherent pattern of unique Christ manifestation is self-contained. Individuals seek without for that which is already within. See, I'm telling you, just before, I didn't even know this was coming up. Serapis and I are in flow. I just want you to know. Serapis and I are in flow. I just want you to know. Call upon his presence to be with us. Okay? Individuals seek without for that which is already within. Just as the entire pattern of nature is manifest in the seed, so in the divine seed, the living word is the inherent God identity, Christ identity, and soul identity of every man and woman. This is what is meant by the statement, no man can serve two masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or else he will hold to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and mammon. You cannot serve the ego and God, the Christ itself. You cannot serve self, small self, and the big self. It's impossible. Just like you can't serve fear or love. It's impossible. And so tune in to where your life stream is. Where are you in obedience to the will of love, to the will of one love? Is that, is that your north? Because you can't do both. You can't serve the primal lower natures of yourself and serve God. You've just turned away from God, the divine will of love, to serve self And that happens. We're in rebellion. We're in resistance. We're in fear because what if I don't get mine? What if God forgets me? F you, God, I don't like you. You've shown up in this way, in different forms. You know? The human master has attempted to enslave its own latent divine identity, which is the source of all life. And thus the human master has created a self-serfdom which holds individuals in bondage, not to the divine presence, nor even to the true self, but to a myriad world patterns whose end is always in transition and change. Question your beliefs, question your beliefs, question your beliefs. Where did you get what you believe? Where did you get that? The Word of God is written on our hearts. You can read the Bible, you can read the Quran, you can read the Bhagavad Gita, you can read the Tao Te Ching, you could read the Science of Mind, you could read the dossier on the Ascension. The Word is written on your hearts. That's why I like to read. It's good to read. It's good. Don't get lost in it. Claim your power. Understand that you have something written on your heart. When you tune in and go within, it's written on you. There's a seed of this already existing within each one of us. And so what I'm doing here is reminding you, activating something, inspiring something that's already present within you. But are we turning away from this and going to the world patterns, the media, the government, the controllers that feel like they know what's better for us? You know, the pillars of the church, the old church, and the pillars of the monarchy. In our sovereignty, in our synarchy, Stellar Fairbairn, that's for you. The changeless patterns of the divine identity are the best assurance to every life stream that the course of man is running will be victoriously fulfilled. When the statement was made, "Eye hath not seen nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love him," it was intended to serve as a bond of understanding between God and man. It was intended to serve as a bond. James Bond. For those that know a little insight, I used to play James Bond in a whole my live stream. But this was intended, this promise that if we serve God, we serve the divine loving presence of that which I am, that which you are, we serve this will, the divine plan, we serve that. There is a promise, there's a bond, it's unchangeable, unbreakable, eternal, a promise for you and I. It was intended to serve as a bond of understanding between God and man, which would bring the blessed assurance of the divine intent into focus in a consciousness as a guard against the tendency of individuals to destroy themselves needlessly on the rocks and shoals of life. In order to create that essential spiritual fabric between self-conscious identity, that which clearly can accept I am that I am, that's the true self, and the universal presence of life, it is needful that the seeker understand to the fullest extent permissible under divine law the difference between the vacillating aspects of human life and those God-guided patterns which will render unto God those things which are God's. It is a great pity, in truth, that millions of us who seek for spiritual treasures do so out of the instinct of self-preservation, motivated by a desire to be good in hopes of a reward for so doing. Oh my goodness. We begin this journey of self-exploration, self-help we call it. You know, you wake up and you go, thoughts are things. I can have things if I have good thoughts. If I have positive thoughts, I can have good things. I can have a big house, and I can have a big car, and I can have a big wife, and I can big time. I'm on my way on making it big time. Bam! You come smashing into yourself because you realize you're still in this You're utilizing, you're consuming God and the supernal power for some selfish gain. Service to self. Magenta Pixie, love this being. She said it so clearly. There's either two paths, God or mammon, right? God or mammon, the two paths are service to self or service to God. To service to the many, to the all, because that's what God is. And you are an individualized expression in that. And we're not giving away your divine sovereignty, your divine individuality, your human right to be an individual. Yes, you are that, but you are part of the whole. And when we're in fighting with that, in service to self, give me, God, I want you, God, I'm not getting God, give me, God. It creates disease, discord, dysfunction, disconnection. You forgot that you are the presence of all that is. You are overflowing abundance of all that. And so you have enough to give, enough to share, enough to spare. You're living in the overflow. You no longer need anything from anybody. Right? And this is a journey of this. This is I am in process with you. I just really want to speak this. I'm coming to you in transmission from the illumination of the Ascended Master realm, and it's coming through, but I know that I'm in this process of bringing heaven to earth in my own being with you, as we all are. In humility, I speak this truth. But it's a great pity that we begin this with this desire for self. And God, if we do enough prayers, if we do enough service, if we do enough things in life, then God will reward us. Love, the source, whatever you want to call this. I'm okay with the word God, and I come from years, a decade of abuse of that word, and I've come to full circle with it. I've come to full circle that I do know that every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, that Christ is Lord, the Christ in your heart, that is the Lord of your heart. That's the truth. And Jesus, our brother Yeshua, Sananda, sits on the council of the Great White Brotherhood, and he's come in to counsel with this being that we're reading from Serapis Bay in Egypt at Luxor, okay? But those who are motivated by divine love, aham prema, reach a place on the road that leads to God identification, where they recognize the supremacy of divine ideals as Abraham did, who heard the voice of God saying unto him, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. As long as individuals, as long as we seek to master the world of illusion by themselves, by ourselves, they will lose their souls, will be castaways from the kingdom that is not of this world. Ever and anon, souls have sought to glorify outer world conditions and to glorify themselves against the background of its facades. Thus, they have pursued a temporal crown, right while they seem to be pursuing the spiritual path. I woke up this morning, a conversation that we're having with our Elemental Grace Alliance family. You know, in this time, the petition before the karmic board. We can come with petitions. We can come with a petition to God. You know, what is that really strong thing on your soul? And one of the strong things, and this is what Serapis is touching about, deliver us from delusion. Deliver us from delusion. Paramahamsa Yogananda has a beautiful chant. His cosmic chants, deliver us from delusion. You know, Heather and I were talking about this morning that a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. We know what we know. We know what we don't know, but we don't know what we don't know. We have a lot of shadows. We have a lot of aspects of ourselves hidden and tucked inside in crevices within our being. And a lot of times we think we're awake. We think we're working with the presence. We think we're channeling the masters. We think we're in this place. But there are times where we're in delusion. And our humility would serve us to stay humble, stay in surrendered submission to the will of the One. And when we find ourselves in conflict with each other, in competition with each other, in criticism of each other, in judgment, if we find ourselves in those spaces and we're not in resonant harmonic relationship, then we must examine what needs to happen to shift, to come into divine harmony. Because that's the nature of God. That's the nature of the presence of the One. It is harmonic. And the discordant elements, the discordant electrons, the discordant viruses in our body system must be cleared as one body. So as long as we're, let's be cautious. One of the problems today, and the principal one involving a modern orthodoxy, is that while it is far better to have and to hold some form of religion than to have none at all, the concepts of mortal error about holy things are, to the present hour, very great and subtly concealed beneath the surface of apparent godliness. Thus prompted St. Paul, even in his day, to declare of apostasy, they have a form of godliness, but deny the power thereof. This is how you know you're in the radiant sphere of the mighty I Am presence. You are prosperous. You are harmonious. You are living a life of impact. You are a radiant sphere. If you're talking the talk and having the language and doing the dance, but there's no power. Just come in, self-realization, self-correction. That's for each one of us to do. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not saying anything against you. I'm just speaking. You know when the I Am presence, when you are walking with the mighty power of God, you're demonstrating love, power, wisdom. You're demonstrating abundance. You're demonstrating creative opportunity. You're radiant health. That's what you are. And we come out of alignment at times. We descend and ascend. We descend and ascend. But that's how we know we're in a coherent, radiant sphere of electronic magnetic light of the God presence. It's evident, but are we denying the power? Are we truly connected to Source? The 11 years ago, I remember looking at an outlet source, right? With a circle around it. Imagine a circle. That's where you plug in. Plug it in. Are you plugged in truly? Religion has become a cloak to be worn as a badge of merit in the eyes of one's fellow men, whereas the seeker for truth and for contact with the hierarchy of light and the great white brotherhood must of necessity come directly under the aegis and guidance of the great master teachers. This God has ordained in order that all is conveyed to mankind may strip the shard of error from their concepts about cosmic law. Then through truth, progress can be made and the soul will reflect its pristine purity as motive after motive is transfigured through the absorption of the nature of deity. Allow yourself to be absorbed into the divine. We must surrender. I had this conversation with a dear sister a couple of weeks ago, and that word surrender brings up a very charged emotion. I get it. You mentioned rules and authority. A lot of us have an issue inherent. A lot of us are fallen angels returning home, and the fallen ones, those of you, it is time to surrender. It's time for the prodigals to come home and realize that you're eating leftovers from a pig, that you're not living the abundant life. That was a promise it's a promise of God. An abundant life, whatever that looks like for you. That's the promise. And when we're in rebellion to surrendering to the One, we're just getting leftovers. We're not really, we're shortchanging. We're sacrificing ourselves. We think, well, I'm going to sacrifice myself if I surrender to the great divine will. And you got to examine that. What I'm saying is the big T, big truth. But there is something, we have rebellion and resistance when our ego's driving our life. Where do you need to surrender to love? Thus, Thus, rather seeking humanly to qualify life with a spiritual pattern which seems to many be a hurdle over which man cannot jump, he places himself in the arms of divine love and lets God unburden his soul. God has never forced man, woman, to accept any spiritual exercise as a requirement for attainment, albeit these have been ordained by him and are available to the seeker that he might shorten the days of his earthly travail. God has indeed provided a beautiful link between reality and illusion through the concept of hierarchy and universal Christhood. As long as men and women think that only one man on earth could ever manifest the perfection of the divine plan, they will feel the lash of the law and perceive themselves as weak and ineffective manifestations steeped in the degradation of sin. This is the good news, and this is the bad news for some of you that may read this. I don't think anybody is going to see this. But if you're in that traditional Christian paradigm where you believe that Jesus Christ is the Lord and he's the only way, that only through Jesus Christ's death on the cross is the only way you get to God, and that you cannot be equal to Christ, is a lie straight from hell. I'm telling you straight up, that's a lie straight from hell. You are a divine being that has been given the way. Jesus is the way, the life, and the truth. The Christ is the way, the truth, and the life to freedom, to oneness with God. When Jesus, Yeshua, was speaking, he was speaking in his Christhood, that I am that I and the Father, Mother are one. He's not the exception. You have an opportunity to arise to your Christhood, to surrender your lower human self, that primal carnal self, in obedience to lust, greed, desire. And not desire in the... Desire is a beautiful thing in a holy way. But when desire for things out here, give me. I need to consume this, whatever that is for you. You know, that's where we're going to create dis-ease in our soul, in our body, and on the planetary body. When sin is replaced by sincerity that recognizes the majesty of the cosmic creator. I want to say that again. When sin is replaced by sincerity that recognizes the majesty of the cosmic creator, man, human, will perceive with God that nothing that God has made could ever be aught else but good. You know, when Jet was born, I remember our dear friends, dear family friends, they were really concerned about us because they wanted to see Jet baptized. They were really, and that's their heart, that's their paradigm, that they believe that you come into this world a blemish, a sinful being, and you need to be cleansed, because if the little baby dies, gosh, you know, what's gonna happen? God's gonna punish that child. It makes me sick to my stomach even saying that. That's a lie, you guys. That is a lie. That's such a lie that hits my heart, that we believe that we are erred and we are flawed, that we've been told that we are less than who we are. And so we come under the submission of a law of the land, of man. We're like that little elephant that grew up with a big giant chain on it. And it grew up with this chain and doesn't know how powerful, how beautiful, how majestic it is. Our problems fade away, family, when we remember who and what we are. That we are divine beings. We are God-free beings, living in a world that's not completely the divine creation at 1:44 p.m. right here, right now, my time. Because the ascension in the light is the goal of all life upon earth. All life upon earth is ascending, whether or not the individual parts are aware of it. It is essential that life should cognize the fruit of striving is God realization. There's no need to have a sense of struggle about this, but only a sense of acceptance. There's no need to struggle with this, to fight this. If you're fighting this word God, or really one union with God, or that's some woo-woo idea or some new age idea or some idea that only religious people talk about. There is a spiritual solution to your problem today. As Heather and I do coaching, we talk to people who are going through crisis in relationship or crisis in their personal life. If you're having a crisis, you're in an emergency, you're in a crisis situation, be it your finances, your health, your wealth, you're feeling stuck in life, if you're in that crisis, I promise you it's a spiritual solution, and it is God realization. The path to your solution is in God realization, in your union with God, the one, with divine love, with divine power, with the divine source, the divine creator, whatever, again, you want to call this thing. It does not matter what we call it. We don't need to struggle. Struggle is not necessary. Just accept that you are this was stated by St. Paul, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and thou shalt be saved, which is to say, believe in the power of this infinite, finite example as attainable by thyself. Cast aside the sense of sin, sickness, and death, and enter into the beauty of wholeness, holiness, and Christ idealism. If God so loved the only begotten Son, the Christ, and if the Christ is the divine image, then this is the image of God in which all men and women are created. Hence, this image is the divine right of every man and woman. A return to this image need not be a complicated maneuver or a dogmatic charisma, but it can become through the simple consciousness of the Messiah, the means whereby all may enter the kingdom of heaven that is within. So will thy consciousness become refined and ascendant toward the deity into which all life must merge. Progressively, we move forward as little children into the kingdom of heaven. I am your brother, Serapis. And so I think these words of Serapis Bey, I think the words of Mark Lanello that allowed this transmission to come through, that's coming through from me to you now, in this now. What is the message? Let's summarize it. We don't need to struggle. Struggle is an option. Struggle happens when you're in resistance and non-acceptance of who you truly are. And the path of Christhood is for all of us. Our path to freedom lies in walking the path of Christ. And I'm not saying Christ as in a religious thing here, of a dogmatic theologian understanding. The Christ is universal. The Christ is cosmic. The Christ is Buddha. The Christ is Allah. The Christ is Krishna. The Christ is Ra. The Christ is awesome. It is what you are. It's what I am. And when we come into merging in that, into that understanding, coming into the inner realms of our kingdom within, come into meditation, come into contemplation, come into reading sacred texts, come into the sacred communion of the one, come into community. No more lone wolves, it's done. We don't need lone wolves. Lone wolves is done. We don't have to sit in our little caves. We come into community, in communion with the unity of all of us, supporting each other, rising each other, brushing off, massaging each other, putting a Band-Aid on each other, picking each other up. Because we're going to stumble, we're going to fall, we're going to forget at times. I do. We all do. Grace upon us all, grace upon us all, grace upon us all. As we crawl, walk, run, fly, transcend, transport. However, different of us are in different evolutions and radiations and vibrations and frequencies. There's no wrong, there's no better. We're all here walking this path home. And so I pray that this time has served you, it's inspired something inside of you. Again, this was just a promise I made to myself, to my God self, and to Serapis Bey within, that I would read this and allow this transmission to come through. And so in this moment, what I know is the solstice window is here. Solstice, summer solstice, here we go, 2019. My beloved's birthday's coming up here in 2 days. And I'm excited. There's so much going on, you guys. So much happening, and we're excited. If you're local and you're in Los Angeles and you want to join us on the 23rd, join us. We're going to be in Westlake holding a satsang, some chants and drum circle, some meditation, some reflections on what solstice is all about in community, a beautiful community. And so message us, message myself or Heather, and we'll give you the information for that. I'm excited for Heather. She's got a brand new song coming out that she's been working furiously on. It's a beautiful song for, she's singing live for, if you know who Mark Nepo, great author, he's been on Oprah. She's going to be singing at an event tomorrow night. And it's a beautiful song that's come through, and that'll be coming. Her album is available. I'm going to show you guys. I'm so excited. I'm going to show you this thing. So it's called Undone. It's backwards to you, but it's a beautiful reflection, and it's a repackaging. It's not new songs, but it's powerful. It's got songs, A Little Bit of Heaven with Brian Duncan. Undone is one of her favorite songs, our favorite songs. We're all being undone, unraveled by love. And so that'll be up on Bandcamp, and if you'd like to get a copy of that, message me and I'll see what I can do about getting that to you. We're open for you if you need support and coaching. This is what we do. We're love and soul coaches. This is a big extension of what I am and what I do, but bring it into the practical. You know, if you're struggling in your heart space on just your relationship with God and you want help to commune with God in the divine, or you're struggling in your spiritual life, that's what we do. We're love and soul coaches. We do focus on relationships because that's where it comes out a lot. You know, is we find out where a relationship with God is by a relationship with another. And so if you're struggling in your relationship with the other, message us. Don't do it alone. Reach out for support. We're not your traditional psychologists. We bring a very powerful presence of divine love in our work. It's potent, it's powerful, and it's beyond what I can put in words. But, you know, if you need a breakthrough session, message us. Don't do it alone, fam. Okay? And I think that is all. Have an incredible solstice. If you're local, a lot of you probably going to Disclosure Fest. Our dear family's going to be there. Lots of family. We're going to be up in Ojai at that time. We won't be there in Los Angeles, but we'll be with you in spirit. And just wish Heather a happy birthday. Big birthday for her this time. I won't tell her age. I'll let her do that. I love you all, and I would end with a prayer, but it's going a little long, and I'm getting a little hungry, so I love you. I present you. What I know right where you are is the power and presence of God is in abundant ways. Just open up and say, thank you. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth. Kadosh, 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 Adonai Sabaoth. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God of hosts, Eir Asher Eir. I am that. I am. You are. Have a great rest of your day, night, morning, wherever the time this is, and we'll see you next week.